on! What a good parent you are. Delicately getting that tiny little caterpillar, it looked like, into the chick's mouth. Well, who would have thought? I mean, what are the odds? We were just talking about a fork-tailed drongo nest. Then we found one and see the adult feeding its baby. What a bonus. Thank you, Mother Nature, for making that one work out for us. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, I don't think. Obviously, it would have been nice if we could see into the nest, but next time. Now, sadly, that tree's too high for me to get my monopod above it and look into that nest, but there is another one nearby on Djuma that we will be able to monitor. We'll be able to see those little chicks holding their beak open, hoping for food. And the good news is that James has found another nest of sorts, I believe, and we're going to send you across to him for an update on that. Right, everybody, we are looking there, not in fact at a vista of the sky. Yep, there we go, nice link to Scott. You can see a Wahlberg's eagle being bombed by a drongo. And you can hear it calling as well. Now that's a very nice example of a pale form Wahlberg's eagle, our smallest eagle here. And one of the most common, and that's the most beautiful version of it. Lovely pale color. We can't get any closer, I'm afraid, without it flying away. Just a beautiful bird there, sitting silhouette. Ooh, coming behind there, Chandra, can you see the partner? I think that's its husband or wife. Flown just below the tree line there, to the right-hand side. Never mind. So this one, it's interesting. We've got two couples that we watch quite carefully here. They're monogamous pairs. There we go. Well done. They come back to the same nests every year. And this one is one pale form and one dark one. Here comes the dark one. Let's see if it lands. Coming right up over the top of the tree. Look at that. I wonder if these aren't two pale forms. Yeah, these are two pale form. It's quite interesting. Certainly there's a nest further up the road here on Twin Downs Road that is two pale form Wahlbergs, and this seems to be the same. There's another nest around here with one pale form and one very chocolate brown one. This looks like a bit of a courtship display going on, and I wonder if we won't... It's probably a little bit late for them to be mating. I would imagine they already have been incubating. There's definitely some allo preening going on there, where one is preening the other, and you might be able to hear the squirrels alarm calling to the left-hand side of your picture going, and I'm sure they're shouting at those eagles. Not a very vociferous alarm call. I'm not that worried about them. Lovely comment from Jim in Utah. Thank you, Jim. Your main thrust of your comment was that you're 68 years old and still learning. Well, Jim, I'm glad that we, with our substantially less experience than you have of life, are still able to provide you with some information. And the information specifically you're talking about is the fact that I called it a forked-tailed drongo, and you say in the US that you would refer to that kind of a bird's tail as a swallowtail. Jim, I've definitely heard the term here, and I think we probably would use it for some of the birds that we get out here. You might say certainly one of the bee-eaters has a forked tail like that, and it's called a swallowtail bee-eater. So definitely a term that we do use out here. Right, let's leave these eagles. We're going to wind our way slowly towards the hyena den and see if we can't catch up with that little cub. Now I'm pushing. I said 4 weeks earlier. I think probably actually almost 5 weeks old now. It tends to lose track of time out here. The days and weeks and months kind of just meld into each other. It's quite a nice way to live, really. And And I cannot believe Scott has found another nest. I think I found one nest the whole year. Scott's found about 25 of them. He's a magnet for nests. Thank you, Genevieve, in New York, where I imagine you're probably suffering the effects of the winter. You say this is your first anniversary of watching Wild Earth, and from the tranquility to the heart-stopping moments of the hunts like Peter had the other day, with a leopard pulling a little warthog out of its burrow, and you say you've learned so much and you've had such a good time with us. Well, Genevieve, the feeling is entirely mutual. To have you on board, asking questions and interacting with us for the last year, or in my case the last 8 months, is just wonderful, and I hope that you continue to watch us and enjoy it. It is a magnificently tranquil and at the same time adventurous place, this. Thank you very much. So the heat has come off. It's definitely, the sun's gone behind a very high bank of grey clouds, and I don't think it's going to rain. I think Brian's thumb at his finger has been lying to him. He's got a sort of slightly swollen joint on that side of his finger. But I think it lied to him today. I don't think it's going to rain. The clouds seem to be very high up. Those Wahlberg's eagles from the tree there, and we were looking at the starlings earlier, and I described them as nomadic and not migratory. And Michael, you would like to know if those Wahlberg's eagles are migratory. Do they migrate? They do, you know. They go up into sort of equatorial Africa and possibly a bit north of that during our winter time, and then they come back. They're one of the earliest migrants back, around August time. They come and they set up their nests and they breed here, and then when they fly north again for our winter, your summer, normally in the northern hemisphere, then they don't breed there, they just kind of survive. They come back to the same nest every year. It's amazing. As do many birds, of course.
All of us singing along, which probably sounded terrible. The Anderson male leopard, a massive male, probably the biggest male leopard that we have laid eyes on here at Djuma and Arathusa in the last year that I've been here. He is a beast, and he likes to move. It's called the Marakeni drainage, the Marakeni riverbed. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area. I mean, this leopard tree silhouetted magically up into quite a gloomy sky, but it really is a wonderful area. Ian calls it the Arathusa golf course. That's how picturesque he thinks it is. Love driving through here. It's an area where, when I first started working on Safari Island, we didn't have any signal. It's quite low and far away from our repeaters. Thankfully our tech team has been doing some remarkable work, and it's very important to remember, without the technological wizards that are part of Safari Live, we wouldn't be able to be sharing these wonderful experiences and moments together. And this was one no-go area. I remember once having a sighting of Tingana, another male leopard, in this area, and we didn't have any signal, so we just had to leave the leopard behind and go off in search of signal, which was hugely demoralizing and frustrating at the time. But like I say, the tech team are really doing a great job at the moment. Certainly got us through Big Cat Week with no major issues, which is a huge relief. Peter and Alex are two of those tech wizards. They left at 5:30 this morning. to head off to Botswana, one of our neighboring countries, to go and set up another waterhole camera. For those of you who are new to the show, we've got an awesome 24-hour-a-day live camera at the Djuma waterhole, and it's now high definition, much better picture and quality, stereo sound. So while you're not on safari with us, you can still be in Africa, listening to some wonderful sounds at different parts of the day, but also getting some great images, especially now that it's so dry. That little waterhole is getting a lot of action. Well, the first time I saw the Anderson male was a little bit further downstream of where we are here. And the second time, and that was the last time I've seen him, was a little bit further south, but also again very close to this riverbed. He doesn't come much further east into Arathusa. He's mainly south and west into some neighboring properties where we do not go. This cool breeze has literally just picked up. I mean, obviously there was a bit of wind from driving the vehicle, but literally just in the last few seconds a bit of a breeze has kicked up. Good for us. The cooler it is, the more likely we are to see a predator on the move. It appears my earpiece is causing trouble again, and VM is hand signaling to me that I need to do a link across to James, so toodle-doo, and we'll catch up later, hopefully with my earpiece working.
Look everybody, it's an elephant, and he's standing there in the bushes just browsing on some of the fresher sort of shoots that there are around. Now, I know Scott was in this area with an elephant earlier, so I wonder if you can tell me if this is the same fellow. It should be pretty easy to tell, given that he's only got one tusk. That will be the most distinctive feature of this fellow. Let's hope he comes out and gives us a bit of a show. Well, not too much of a show, of course. Oh, lovely to hear from another one of our young viewers. Hello, Mia. You're just 6. We've had Frank, who is age 7. We have Gracie, who's 8. And you're just 6, Mia. And you want to know, you say you'd hope that you'll one day come to Africa. Mia, I hope you one day come to Africa too. I think it's an important thing for everyone to do. It's the most special continent, this. So you best start saving your money now, Mia. Shanae, you ask a very, very clever question. You say, how many muscles are there in the trunk? And you've read recently that there are only 7. And because you've heard, no doubt, you've heard the figure of 100,000 probably bandied about by various guides around the place. It's one of these things that turns into a bit of an urban legend, and when you become I guess you'd call it a bush legend. When you become a guide, it's one of the few things that, everybody tells you you sort of understand as a bush truth, even though you seldom read it. So there are over 100,000 different muscle and nerve fibers within the trunk. Now you say, are there 7 muscles? There could well be 7 groupings of muscles. I think there are definitely more than just 7 muscles, but probably 7. And I think that you will find, and there are probably over 100,000 different muscle and nerve fibers, and helping to operate the tremendously complicated organ. But that's where the confusion comes from. So if you're a new guide, you'll learn that there are 100,000 muscles in an elephant's trunk. We can look at the skin there, and of course one of the ways that we describe elephants is as pachyderms. And a pachyderm as far as I understand it, means wrinkly skin. And Nicole in North Carolina, you want to know, why do they have wrinkly skin? I don't know, Nicole. I don't know that there's a specific evolutionary reason for why they have wrinkly skin. I mean, their skin is pretty loose. It's very thick, of course, because it needs to be a good insulator. And I suspect it's probably got something to do with insulation, Nicole. Sorry? Gendre is trying to whisper to me because he doesn't want to make me look like a fool, which is very kind of him. But he reckons that it's an increased surface area, which of course is probably correct. It does absolutely increase the surface area of the skin, and that would help with heat loss and with heat gain, actually. It's interesting. I'm just trying to think. The bigger animals, well, so rhino, we would recall pachyderms as well. They've also got very wrinkly skin. But hippo, the same size, don't. They, of course, live in water, so they don't have quite the same need to get rid of heat as the elephants do. So, yeah, maybe it is an adaptation to heat. Let's just watch this fellow for a little while and see what he does. And I suppose you look at that skin and you think, well, what does it feel like? And Ashley in Missouri, you want to know what it does feel like. I have felt an elephant's skin before, and it feels a bit like, I'm just trying to describe it to you. It's rough, it's not very smooth, there's very little hair on it at all. And it would be a bit like, I'm trying to think of something sort of in your household that it might feel like. I suppose it would be, it doesn't feel like leather, it's much coarser than that. I don't know. Can't really think of anything that it would feel like. Yeah, so like rough leather, Ash. Pitted, old leather. See if we can't get a little bit closer to him, because he's going into a thick bush. While I do that, really, you're in Milwaukee, a place I have never been, and really, you want to know why the elephants don't get nicknames like some of the other animals do. Really? It's just for fun, but it's mainly the territorial animals. So, I mean, this bull will be here for a few days and he'll probably disappear for months and we won't see him again. So we normally only name the animals that we see very regularly, that are very territorial, and that's why leopards have got names and the lion prides have got names too. But not the individual lions and the lion prides often, but sometimes they do. They have very distinctive characteristics. And what we don't want to do is irritate him, but we do want to, I'm just going to quieten down my voice a little bit, but it's just very nice to get a bit closer to them, just watch. You can see the wrinkles on the skin, and especially you can see those individual little pieces of muscle moving in the trunk as he picks up bits and pieces of food to eat. The trunk, of course, is amazing from the way it's able to sort of telescope or concertina out, so it can stretch a long way. If he doesn't want to, he can carry it without touching the ground, and then he can kind of just stretch it out and touch the ground, pick individual things up off the ground with a prehensile tip. So it is a remarkable organ. He's also eating something here called a buffalo thorn or ziziphus, and it's very, very thorny. Makes no difference to him at all. He just pops it into his mouth. It doesn't sort of lacerate his tongue, and I just think that's amazing. I'm really not sure how that happens, because an elephant's tongue is pretty soft. but for some reason they're able to tolerate those horrific thorns. Very good eating is the buffalo thorn, even for human beings. We can use them use buffalo thorn as a salad. His wizened old face. It's so peaceful being around an elephant like this. What she eats, and she would eat about 150, so a big bull like this about twice that, so 250 to 300 kilograms of food in one day, and in pounds that's about 600 to 650 pounds of food. Can you imagine eating all of that, Regan? I certainly can't. It's more than I weigh by some margin, and therefore definitely more than you weigh, Regan. And then I just quickly look at him. He looks like he's going to come out a little bit. We were picking up a femur the other day and a half of a hip bone, and together they weigh over sort of 40 or 50 kilos, and 110 pounds. And where do they get the calcium from? The calcium, I think, is found, well, it's in the diet, obviously. They don't eat a huge amount other than the plants around here, but they are very selective. So this question from Rena about where they get the calcium, they're highly selective about the food they eat. So I think they actually feel when they have a nutritional deficiency. They'll select plants that are probably better than others at pulling calcium out of the earth. And they will also sometimes pick up sand and eat that. I do know that the soil here is not very rich in calcium, and so it probably is a bit of a struggle, but they will engage in what we call geophagia, and that's the eating of soil. And I think you'll find that geophagia plays a large role in maintaining the calcium needs of a big elephant bull like this. He's huge. He's got a really kind of big Roman nose about him. I do wonder what happened to his tusk. Must have been a pretty painful thing, I suspect, when it disappeared. But he won't be affected by that at all. He'll be perfectly comfortable and able to live his life to the full. So here we are watching an elephant eating a whole lot of thorns and things, and in Pennsylvania, you're wondering about all the blood capillaries and veins in the ear, and if he was to burst one or tear one on a thorn, would he bleed to death? Would there be a danger of flapping his ears there to try and maintain coolth? Those capillaries are enormously important because those capillaries, here he goes, the capillaries keep the brain cool. When he flaps his ears like that, he keeps the blood cool. All the blood goes pumping through. In terms of pure strength, probably the same thing as you watched an elephant do, maybe in this elephant with Scott earlier. Push over a big tree. Certainly I've seen them push over some enormous knobthorn trees, kind of trees that a bulldozer wouldn't be able to push over. And they push over huge numbers of trees in this area, especially during the winter months. An elephant will graze if it can. They'll prefer to eat in the early spring. Now you can see those ears flapping. You can see all the veins in the back of his ears. And you can imagine how fanning them like he's doing just helps to cool the blood that's going off into the brain. Still feeding on Ziziphus, very selective feeders. They will definitely select for different kinds of trees. They don't just sort of eat indiscriminately. probably no more than, I'd say 15. So Paul Rizzo, we're just back onto the skin here, and you say pachyderm means thick skin, not wrinkly skin. Not that, chaps. So a rhino and an elephant and a hippo would be called a pachyderm because they both all have thick skin. So thanks for that, Paul. And then Jennifer in Toronto, you say perhaps it's got something to do with flexibility. Do they need flexible skin, these elephants? I don't think they do, you know. The wrinkliness is, you know, they don't need the kind of suppleness that, say, a cat does. So although this is very wrinkly skin, it's not loose on the body like say a honey badger's or a lion's even. It's not loose around the neck. It's just kind of wrinkly. So I think it's definitely got much more to do with surface area, like Chandra suggested, than it does to do with flexibility or the need for it to be kind of floppy on some of the predators. The predators are like that to help them with defense. Obviously, their range of movement needs to be that much higher, and also if they get bitten, you know, they tend to live in very competitive lives, and if they get bitten around the neck, they need that extra skin to be able to pull away so that it protects any vital parts of the body. Look at that. Oh dear. Oh dear. Bye-bye, Mr. Knobthorn Tree. Okay, let's just keep very still and quiet here. He's now watching us. I believe you saw this elephant push a tree over earlier. He's decided against that one, I'm very pleased to say. There you go. All right, I think let's head on from here. Make our way to the hyena den before the sun sets. It's just setting behind us. I did get 2 questions through there, one of which I've forgotten. Deb in Ohio, wanted to know, or was suggesting perhaps, that's a good suggestion, that perhaps the elephant's skin is that wrinkly because it helps them when they're walking through all that sort of thorny bush, and perhaps protects the skin and means they don't get quite so scratched as they would if they had tighter skin. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the reasons. It's a good suggestion, Deb. Thank you for that. I'm afraid that the next question I did forget, so we'll get it back from the final control and I shall answer it forthwith. Brian, yes, you want to know about any biological function of the wrinkles. And Brian, well, just like we were saying, as Deb says, maybe they help with the scratching, and then the reason they would need an extra surface area would be to help with heat loss and probably help them to stay cool. So I suspect that's probably why. If the reason that they have those wrinkles is for surface area, that would be the reason why. It would probably be for heat exchange. Right, let's head across to Scott. He's got an update on the big cat that he's following. We're out of Big Cat Week, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop looking for them. See you just now.
Well, it's that beautiful stage of the evening again, sun setting out to the west. Even though there's clouds, we're getting a bit of a golden glow. The wind's picked up and this weeping wattle is indicating that quite clearly to you. The leaves blowing in the wind, and we're calling you across because we've got some good news. Take a look at these tracks. they look like they could be from earlier last night. We did get a little bit of rain, and I think it was in and around the time that it was actually raining, judging by the crispness of these tracks. What I can tell you though for certain is that it is a big male leopard that left these tracks in the sand, and that's what we're looking for. Now, it's not necessarily tracks of the Anderson male. It could be Tingana, the other male leopard whose territory overlaps on this buffer area. And I have actually seen Tingana walk down this very road. So it'll be interesting to see who it is, and we're going to do our best to try and work out where it's gone. The tricky area, we are close. We are basically on our western boundary, so we cannot go further west. We can only go to the east, but we're quite close to the Arathusa waterhole. And I'm hoping that in these dry conditions, the leopard may be lured to the water, and that's where we are hoping to go and find him now. We'll keep you updated though, and we'll just check up at the next road junction what this animal does. This area of road is nice and easy to see what his tracks have done, because the sand is very soft, but further up ahead the road becomes very hard. Now I can see his tracks on the right hand side of the road, and that's what I'm focusing on, making sure I try and keep an eye on. But not an easy thing to do whilst driving in a vehicle. But I think it's still useful for us to just head in the general direction that this leopard was moving in, not necessarily follow each and every footprint, but just start kind of fine-tuning our search, and again hope that he will be at the waterhole up ahead. Now I can't see any more tracks, but the road is hard here. Good evening, Charlie, on Twitter. And you'd like to know if Shadow is one of Karula's most recent cubs. And no, Charlie, if I have got your question correct, she was actually Karula's first litter. It was Shadow and another leopard, I think, called Tundi. So 2 females that she raised successfully. So that was many years ago, 9 years ago. And since then, Karula has raised many litters. I think another 5 or 6 leopards she's raised to adulthood. Quarantine and Djuma are the 2 that I got to know briefly, kind of for the first 6 months of my career here with Safari Live. Just seen a bird's nest. I'm not sure how new it is, but it might be worth investigating. You can certainly see a stick platform. I'm just going to jump onto the hood of the vehicle quickly to see if I can't get an aerial view. No eggs that I can see, but certainly a nest of some description, maybe from last year. Cool. Because we came down on this road to our left, this is the road we drove down, I think we further east and hope that he's here somewhere. Hello Matty, my good friend, and for those of you who don't know, Matty's 9 years old and is becoming one of the younger up-and-coming safari guides and tunes into our safari very often. So always a pleasure to hear that you're watching, Natty, and hope that you're doing well. I'd like to know about the vulture's nest in this area of Arathusa, and we drove past one earlier, but the adult wasn't there, and because it's so high up in the tree, it's difficult to know what's going on. Quite a lot. I haven't been too good at that, but no updates on the vultures and their nests, Matty, not that I know of. But I'm sure if Brent takes you on a drive in the next couple of days, if you ask him, he'll take you across there. But we did just go past a little bit earlier, like I said, and sadly the adult was not there. I can see an adult. Oh no, I thought it was a female impala. It's actually a male. And I was hoping that she was going to have a tiny newborn lamb next to her. There's a few around, but sadly the mothers are very nervous having these new little babies to look after, and they often run away before we can show them to you. And now that the wind's picked up, the animals are going to be extra cautious and extra scared, because it's favorable for the predators to sneak up on unsuspecting prey when the wind is in their favor. It muffles the sound of their footsteps approaching, and it also muffles their movements. With all the trees blowing in the wind and the leaves moving, it helps to mask a leopard or a lion's approach. Miss Chin and Dallas, and good to hear from you again. Miss Chin's mentioned that she knows that I love a lot of different animals out here, and they've all got their own different qualities, but which is the one animal that kind of stands out the most for me and has had the biggest impact on me, or best memories for me? And a very big elephant bull, to spend time with them is a very, very moving experience, I feel, especially when you get close to them, because they are absolutely Goliath. They are monstrous animals, but they can be so gentle and so accommodating of you if they are in the right mood. And I feel that their intelligence, together with their size and their beauty, makes you kind of feel like there's possibly more of a connection there than there would be, or that you would feel with other animals. And again, that's just my personal opinion, but I do certainly feel that the intelligence allows us to kind of understand one another a little bit more so than the other animals out here. So elephants in general, but especially the big bulls. Good question. These kudu are just looking absolutely exquisite. Look at how bold those white stripes are. It's like they've just come out from the makeup artist, looking absolutely exceptional. Young male at the back. His horns are still very small with regards to how big kudu's horns can be, and they'll be like a very large spiraling corkscrew when he's a bit older. He's probably only a year in age, possibly 2. And I love those vertical white stripes. The purpose of them is, and it's quite nice to see it now as he's moving through some thick bush, it helps to chop his body up into puzzle pieces. And because kudu are browsers that live in thick vegetation, feeding on the leaves predominantly, this of the trees growing upwards that they're feeding on, and that together with their vertical white stripes does a really good job of helping them disappear. So, another question now, Christy in Tampa, and are there any meerkats out here? Oh, sorry, not Christy, cats in Tampa. And meerkats, for those of you who don't know, are small mongoose-like animals. They're incredibly cute, and they live in little burrows, excavations in the ground. Sadly, we do not get any of them here, Cat. They live in the more arid reaches of southern Africa, and in the Cape you find them, northwestern Cape, those kind of areas you get to see them, but not from here in the Sabi Sands. But we do see other cute little animals that are quite similar to them, mainly dwarf mongooses in the small colonies that they live in here, and from time to time banded mongoose, but they're not very common here and they are quite skittish. So sadly no meerkats, but you will get to see some mongooses if you keep tuned in to these live safaris. Take a look at the beautiful sunset, even though it is just a tiny little orange glow off to the west. And it's a great time of the evening just to stop and to listen, possibly hear something, some clues as to what's going on and where the animals are moving. Especially the fact that there's a big male leopard moving through this general area. If he was to let off his loud rasping call, we could hopefully hear it and try and pinpoint his location. Good stuff. Well, we're going to probably stay here for a few more minutes just listening to the bush, but you guys are being transported to a den site. Enjoy.
Look at that, everybody. Isn't that spectacular? Little baby hyena, probably 5 weeks old. And the first time I've seen it down the mound, it has been down 2 or 3 times before. But this is the first time I've seen it right on the ground here. Making little squealing noises. And that's the mother making that ooh noise. And look, the little 6-month-old is coming over the top of the mound now. A quick look at that. There she is. Lovely little scene playing out here. There are 4 hyenas here in total. 6-month-old on top, the little 5-week-old one, you know, the sort of scraggly looking mother down on the ground, and then probably an 8-month-old hyena also just lurking about to the left-hand side. Oh dear, he's gone into his home. It's very irritating. I hope he comes out again. That is not a particularly good-looking hyena. Salivating. The little one's calling from the den. Hey, you can hear it again. Let's just see if she comes out. It's very hot. You can see the mother is panting heavily. Got a nice full belly, so she's obviously eaten something lately. Lovely breeze blowing through the tops of the trees. On the little one. If we're still here when it gets dark, then we will put a light on if the others are around. But if that little thing is out and about, we won't put a light on it. I'm just going to move slightly forward because there is another hyena just to the left-hand side of your screen, which we might be able to see if I move forward. can't see the other one now. It seems to have disappeared off into the bush. I think it's definitely going to be worth just sitting here for a little bit longer, see if the little one comes out, and if that 6-month-old, which is getting very playful now, doesn't come. Back over from the other side. We can't get to the other side of the den. There's too much in the way of bush. The elephants have made a huge mess here. You saw that bull pushing a tree over with Scott earlier on, and they've done a lot of that sort of gardening around here. It makes it extremely difficult to drive the vehicles off-road. There you can see the gardening of the elephants. Very untidy gardeners they are. Intricate nest. You can see the wind blowing through them now, waving in the wind. Beautiful birds. Strange place to put your nest, I would have said. They normally nest in colonies, and that's actually I think those two nests were built by the same male. One of them was definitely rejected by a female. I'm not sure about the second one. And then there's also an oxpecker's nest there in that piece of dead tree that you can see there, just in the fork. There's a hole that the oxpeckers will go into. So if we sit here for long enough, the parents might come home. There might even be one in there now incubating the eggs. Go. I think she's quite an old female, you know. Her teeth are not quite what they once were. They look quite blunt. I'm also trying to get an impression of this. She's not a good-looking lady, that, I'm afraid. She does look rather, I don't know, a bit like sort of Lion King hyena-ish. You do get some magnificent-looking hyenas. She's not the... I don't think she'd be walking the catwalks of Milan in the hyena world. Part of the sexual anatomy, of course, of hyenas. Chandra, if you can just have a quick look at the back end. That, of course, looks like a scrotum, but it isn't. It's a false scrotum, which the females have, and of course we bang on about how odd their genitalia are, and that's just a nice example of it. I mean, if you were to see this hyena and you didn't know better, you'd definitely say it was a male, but it isn't. It is a female. A very hot one, you can see. Panting in the humidity and heat. Not to mention salivating on herself. Now, hyenas, of course, are associated with the Lion King. They are the evil one. But sometimes they will eat each other, but sometimes they just leave the kind of carcass alone. And lions, who are portrayed, of course, in the Lion King as enormously noble creatures, will regularly turn into cannibals, actually, and I've often seen lions eating dead lions, sometimes dead relations. So although that particular hyena we're looking at now does look a little bit like the goose steppers of the Lion King. She's actually just as noble as there's been some salivating here, and CC Art Design, a name clearly not given to you by your mother, I don't think. CC Art Design, very nice Twitter handle though. You want to know, perhaps, or can hyenas get rabies? CC, as far as I'm aware, any mammal can get rabies. I don't think it necessarily kills all mammals, and certainly I know that mongoose, for example, are able to carry rabies, but don't express necessarily, and they're not affected by it, so they can certainly give it to other animals, but they don't get affected by it. Hyena, I'm sure, can be affected by rabies, and certainly would be something we'd watch out for if there was a rabies outbreak amongst the domestic animals outside of the reserve. But I don't, that salivation is purely a function of the fact that she's panting in the heat. She'd be behaving very strangely if she was affected by rabies. It does affect the brain of the animals in the same way that it affects humans in the brain, and she's definitely not showing any signs of rabies. Despite her somewhat fearsome looks, of course. I'm not sure why that little one went back inside, and it was certainly squealing about. So I think let's put it to our marvelous viewers. I am more than happy to sit here until we sort of go off air in about 25 minutes. Let's have a poll quickly. I'm also very happy to drive around and see if we can find something else. But I think it might be a good idea to stay. So hashtag Safari Live if you want to stay. Likewise, if you want us to go and find something else, keep us posted. You are, of course, all of our to watch the internet safaris that we're taking on a daily basis. Zach, you want to know what makes them the cleverest predators on the reserve? I'm not sure that they are the cleverest predators. They certainly are highly intelligent. I think you'll find, though, and I actually read an interesting study about this the other day, they certainly do appear to be able to solve problems more than lions and leopards do. But I mean, what is intelligence? If it's an ability to solve human-like, possibly be more intelligent, and the reason for that is apparently their sociality. So they are highly social animals, and what you find is that does produce kind of selective pressure towards problem solving, and we more intelligence in the way that we define intelligence. Nice one. And so the poll is that we're going to stay at the hyena den and see if the little one comes out again. And while we're doing that, Michael, you want to know when the hyena will start eating meat, the little ones? They suckle for much longer than most animals, up to 6 months, or most carnivores. By 6 weeks or 3 months in lions, they're already weaned. So they suckle for 3 months longer, double the length of time that lions do. They will start eating meat as soon as it's brought back to the den, though. They'll start to sample little bits of snack, but by 6 months they're completely weaned. You can see the light gently starting to fade now. There's a bit of cloud in the sky. The I don't think it's going to rain. And you can feel that lovely cooling breeze. I'm not sure, well, you obviously can't feel it through your screen, but you can hear it. It's really a merciful relief after the heat of the day. I'm sure the hyenas are enjoying it very much as well. You can see how well used this termite mound is. Huge termite mound. Used to belong to an enormous colony of termites. Probably opened up by an aardvark or aardvark, an ant bear. First word in the English language, I think it is, at least in the English dictionary. Somebody might like to check that up for me if you've got an Oxford English dictionary or something similar. See what the first English word is. I think it's aardvark. And they would have opened up the initial hole where that hyena cub went in, and then the hyena cub will modify it and put a shelf at the back where nothing else can get at her. She'll be completely safe back there. Some of our viewers, of course, have... Ooh, marvellous. Hang on a second, Gerda, I'll get back to your question. Let's go across to Scott. He's got a little antelope to show you. Like this steenbok.
Well, while you wait for the baby hyena, aren't we lucky that we can show you this tiny little baby impala? And thankfully, its mother has not run away. There's actually 3 mothers with 3 little lambs. And you can see from the mother's body language, she is very, very alert. In these windy conditions, it must be terrifying for a mother. So, game drive radio crackled through there. Absolutely awesome. A tiny little lamb, possibly only a few days old. There goes another mother running off, and here they all go. And even from a very young age, they can run very quickly, and that's critical. Because if they couldn't, they would be a very, very easy meal for predators. At the moment, they are still an easy meal, but not too easy. So, at least they stand a chance. And I hope you guys stand a chance of seeing that little cute hyena cub again. Crossing fingers, back to the den, and let's hope he pokes its head out.
And I saw a picture actually the other day of a warthog that had killed a baby, newborn baby impala, and was eating it. And I think you'll find there are quite a few animals out here that we consider, predominantly herbivores that will, on the odd occasion, partake of the meat. She's quite sweet, really. Now, Gerda, I said I'd get back to you. You said you've been to the Kruger National Park before, and that's marvellous. So the Kruger Park, just for those of you who don't know, is part of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, which is, we're sitting on the western fringes of it, so it's all open to us here. And Gerda, you've been there, and you've been to a hyena den there, and you say there were pellets around the den that there don't seem to be here. Gerda, without a little bit more of a description of your pellets, I can't really explain it. So maybe send through a description or even a picture, if you like, of what those pellets looked like, and I'll try and explain. I'm thinking maybe there was an owl's nest above it, and maybe an owl was dropping its pellets down. Owls will often vomit up pellets of bone and hair from the animals that they eat. that everything is safe, the coast is clear. It's been a while since I've heard from this particular fellow in Pennsylvania. Wingnut, your Twitter handle makes me giggle every time I hear it. You want to know, how does a hyena clean the blood off her face? Clearly not with any great enthusiasm, Wingnut. Oh, sorry, let's go quickly across to Scott. He's gone something fascinating. This is amazing.
This is one of the most awesome things that I have ever seen. It's a genet, which is an animal we hardly see with its tiny cub. Look at how cute that thing is. There's two little heads poking out. I have never, in my wildest dreams, wasn't that awesome? Oh, tiny little cubs. I mean, that animal did only about 15 to 20 inches long, and that's its body size, probably double that with its tail, and that little cub would have been absolutely minute. I'm sure it's going to come out again. Let's take a closer look. Oh, it's carrying a cub in its mouth. Oh my word. No ways. I can't. Look at how delicate she's climbing down this tree. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, I'm not sure which way she's going to go from the base of this tree here. Maybe just try and pan down to the left there, in that little gap there. Yeah, I think that might be a good spot. She might move through here. I've got no idea where she's gone. Now, I'm not going to shine my lights. I don't want to attract any attention to them, especially while she's moving these tiny little cubs around, probably moving them to a new den site. Now, depending on where she's planning on moving them to, she could be quite a while before she comes back to collect the second little cub. And who knows, maybe there's a third in there. I wouldn't know because I've never seen genet cubs before and know nothing really about them. That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. And that is the joy about being on safari. You literally do not know what to expect. And as we came through this little dip, I saw this movement, and initially I thought it was a leopard with the spots and the colours, and then on closer inspection it wasn't a leopard, it was a genet, which was a great surprise, because especially a lot of the seasoned Safari Live goers will know we don't get to see genets very often, and when we do, it's usually a fleeting glimpse, not a slow motion quality sighting like that, where it's carrying its one cub at least down the tree, and we got to see those two heads poking out. Fascinating. I was impressed hugely by the way she managed to clamber down that tree, vertically heading straight down with such gentle eloquence. Let's take one last look down. No, there's not much light left, but we may see a little bit of movement. Who knows, maybe the cub that's been left behind will move around. But I don't think we're going to have too much luck, and I don't think we are going to get any better than the sighting we've had. It is tempting to stay and keep an eye on them, and half of me is wanting to do that, but because the light is fading so quickly, I don't think it's going to be worthwhile. I would not shine a spotlight on that animal while she's moving her cubs around. It's far too sensitive of a sighting. So I think we should move on and just be grateful that we got
wonderful sighting to see a little one like that. I've never seen a baby genet before, so I'm rather jealous. We're still here at the hyena den. We've just tried to get another view to see if the 6-month-old was on the other side, but she isn't. She must have also gone into the hole. So we've come back to, well, the slightly less than glamorous mother that is sitting here, watching guard, keeping a watch over her little one. You can see the light is fading now quite fast. The little one hasn't come out again. Oh, there we go. High action here at the hyena den. Maybe going in to call the little one. Now again, if she does come out, we won't put a light on. And the picture that you've got is much brighter than we can actually see. The camera's being quite clever about it. Look. Shonda, did you see the nightjar? I don't know if you can see it. We're not going to try and shine on the night or put the camera on the nightjar. I don't think you'll see it. KJ in Britain, you want to know how often do hyenas mate, or do they breed? You'd probably find a female will have a youngster every 2 years or so, 2.5 years. And that will depend, though, of course, on whether she manages to raise the youngster to adulthood or not. If she doesn't, then, of course, once just about any animal out here, or any carnivore out here, if they lose a cub, they will then come into estrus again and breed again. Trying to bring the little one out. Sort of whining noise. There, you can hear it. There's a little one. Shouting. Too sweet. Now, many of the we've been watching the baby impala, obviously, and you'll find that they are obviously much more precocial when they're born. So they are, they're mobile almost immediately on birth. Carnivores tend to have much, and they can see, but they're obviously not quite as adept at moving around like those. About days. I think these guys have a slightly longer gestation period. I'm going to say 120 days, Dawn, so just about 4 months. I might be wrong. We'll try and check that up for you. I think it's about 121 days. And I only think that because they're slightly more developed than, say, a lion cub would be. There's a nasty suspicion in my mind there that says 90 days, but that seems a bit short to me. We'll try and follow up on that. Billy, you were sitting in Cedar Hill. That sounds like a nice place to live, Billy. You want to know what the life expectancy of the hyena is? Probably about 10 years, you're getting old. 12 years, you're doing pretty well. 13, you're getting decrepit. and 15 you'll be probably the oldest hyena around here. So like most of the carnivores, potentially in captivity up to 20 in extreme cases. Out here, seldom beyond sort of 13 years, I would say. It's not an easy life. And like I say, as soon as you physically start to lose it a little bit, you're definitely going to start losing condition. Alright, I'm afraid everybody, I think it's time to leave here. I don't want to disturb them too much in the darkness. And Jean-Dre has now pushed the camera to the max. Right, Jean-Dre? Yeah, so that's as bright as it can get. It's much, much darker where we're sitting than where you are. So we'll answer a few more questions and then we'll head out. Oh, here comes another hyena. Another hyena arriving. This is wonderful. It's not black, it's covered in mud. It's been lying in the water, obviously, all day long, chilling out, having a pool party. And Nicole, you want to know if the little one will spend the night in the den? I would say sometimes yes and sometimes no. Now, this is interesting. It's quite fascinating to try and see who are the most dominant females, and try and get an idea of what the hierarchy is and see who's in charge and who isn't. I would say that those two look pretty much similar in terms of hierarchy. I would say the one that arrived is pretty much on the same social tier as that one, perhaps a sibling. The little one did disappear inside very quickly. Maybe slightly lower ranking. Look, there it comes again. Very cross. So sweet. You see how you can hardly see it there in the dark. And you know, we often get asked why it is that hyena babies are black. Well, I think there's your answer. So they probably are out at night a bit more than we would normally think, but they also spend their time mostly in the den. And when they're inside the den, of course, if a predator was to come along and see if they could get a hyena cub, to see that little black animal inside the hole would be almost impossible. There we go. See, they're disappearing, so we'll move out of here after this next question. Our last question here is from Janet. Hello, Janet. Thank you for your question. You want to know what the height of an adult female hyena is. They probably stand, if this was the ground here, that stands sort of, you can't get that, can you, Jean-Dre? Just under 3 feet, probably 3 feet at the shoulder. Big female, about 3 feet at the shoulder, maybe 3'3". And that's because we really are making the camera work very hard. Isn't that wonderful? Alright, I think that's going to be it, everyone. Let's get out of here. I don't want to disturb them too much in the night, and we will have to use the lights to get out of here. What a great treat that was. Thank you, Jean-Dre. Took a light on the back, so I don't hit anything. Okay, let's head back to Scotland for the wrap-up of his Janet, not Caracal sighting, and we'll see you just now while we get after we've got out of here.
Welcome back, everyone. I was just racing past Brent and Jamie and a few other crew members who stopped having some sundowners, and because time is running out, I wanted to avoid any distractions that they may be providing, so you may have got a glimpse of them. Anyway, it's, like I said, time to close up this evening's safari. It's been great fun, and so happy to hear some wonderful feedback from Raisa, who's been following Wild Earth and Safari Life for many, many years now. And they said that this sighting, or they think that the sighting we've just had of that kit, and Fiona's actually raised many of these kits or kittens, and I think it's 15 of them, you say, Fiona, and almost always genets will only give birth to 2. So I was mentioning that there could be 2 or 3 little cubs, or kittens rather, but Fiona has cleared up that they will almost always give birth to 2. So thank you very much for that feedback, Fiona, and I'm so happy we got to share that magical moments with the genet. Fiona also was quite interested that it was roosting up in the cavity of a tree, or was that Raisa? I can't remember which one of you were interested by that, but certainly a very good den site, and I wasn't hugely surprised to see the genets using that as a den. They will also use those as sleeping places during the daytime, so not only a den site but also a good place to sleep. Good stuff. Well, it's time to send you back to James, I'm told, and thank you so much for joining us on this evening's safari. It's been wonderful, and I think it will be Brent and Jamie out in the morning. Anyway, there will be a safari and you will have the opportunity of jumping on board. Goodbye. See you next time.
Right, everybody, back we are. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I think we had a wonderful time, very gentle drive, some interesting stuff at the waterhole to start off with, the buffalo and the hippo. Not sure how long Peter's going to be with us, or indeed with the world. His habitat is slowly shrinking, and if he does get too weak, of course, lions may well think about taking him out, as would some hyenas if there was a large enough clan that came across him. So we're going to head off home now, and we will see you tomorrow on the brilliance of the African dawn. Thank you, Jean-Ray, for your efforts this afternoon. Nice to work with you again on the car. A big thank you to Jerry and Tara in the final control, and of course to Scott and the inimitable Vian Dorenbrach on the other vehicle. The biggest thanks, as always, goes to you for your interactions and for your time. We love having you on board with us, and we hope that all of our new viewers from Big Cat Week will stay with us forevermore, basically. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe and happy wherever you are. Bye-bye.